0, 1. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Reinvention Room. I'm Mel, and this is the room where we stop waiting for life to change and start becoming the person we were meant to be. I'm so glad you're here today because I want to talk about something that I think every single one of us needs to hear on repeat, not just once, on repeat. So let's get into it. Do you remember learning to ride a bike? I mean, really think about it for a second. Think about the wobbling, the training wheels, the day the training wheels came off, the scrapes on the knees, the feeling in your stomach right before you knew you were going to tip over. Nobody expected you to stay on the bike the first time, right? Nobody stood there with their arms crossed and said, "Well, I guess this isn't for you," right after you fell. Nobody looked at a 6 year old or however old you were when you first learned how to ride a bike. Nobody says, this just isn't for you, because they know it takes time, right? It takes time to learn how to ride a bike. You have to fall. And then what do? You get right back on the bike until you learn how to ride it, learn how to become one with it. You become good at it, and then you start enjoying it. So everyone that was watching you, they knew exactly what was supposed to happen. You were supposed to fail over and over, right? It's an expectation. And we all knew it, or at least the adults did if you were a kid. And somehow you did too, right? Because it's similar to when we started to walk. We just don't remember that, most of us. So here's my question for you today. Why do we let ourselves believe that becoming a new version of who we are should look any different? Why do we treat a like one slip up like a verdict? Because that's what we do, right? Isn't it? The minute we fall, the minute that we fall into that old habit, the minute we procrastinate again, the minute our confidence dips, the minute we react to the exact same thing that we swore that we would never react to again, we don't say, "Oh, you know what? I fell off the bike." We say, "I failed." And I want to gently stop you right there, because those are two completely different things. Falling off the bike is a moment. Failing is a story you tell yourself about that moment. And most of the time, that story isn't even true. Here's something I want to be honest with you about, because I think it's more helpful than pretending I have it all figured out. Becoming someone new isn't one decision you make and then you're done. I wish it worked that way. I really do. But it doesn't. It's it's not just one decision. It's 1,000 of them. It's 1,000 of tiny decisions, invisible moments where you're quietly asking yourself, who am I going to be right now in this exact same moment? Or you're supposed to be asking yourself that, but most of us are on autopilot, and that's the dangerous part. That's what keeps you in the loop without even knowing it. And some of those moments, you're going to choose the version of you that you're building. If you're awake and you keep yourself in the moment, um, and you're going to choose that discipline, the calm response, the healthier choice, the brave move. And, in some of the moments, you're not. Sometimes you'll catch yourself thinking the old thoughts, talking to yourself the old way, reacting exactly like the person you used to be before you decided to become someone new. Sometimes you'll choose comfort over growth. Sometimes fear will make the decision before you even get a vote. Sometimes you'll just forget. Forget who you're becoming, forget why you started, forget the version of yourself you were excited about a few weeks ago. And I need you to hear this clearly because that's normal, okay? That's not a red flag. That's just what it feels like to be human, right? Who's trying to change. And that's why we need to give ourselves grace. Because here's the truth about your brain, or I should say, our brain. It has spent years, maybe even decades, practicing one version of us. It has a groove that's worn into it, right? Like a path through the grass that you've walked so many times. Our brain doesn't wake up in the morning looking around and going, oh, interesting. We're completely a different person now. Let's update everything immediately. It doesn't work like that, right? Our brain keeps trying to pull us back toward what it already knows, the familiar. Not because that's who we really are, but because that's familiar. And familiar feels safe, even when it isn't good for us. So let's talk about what that actually looks like in real life because I don't want the story to just stay abstract. I want it to be clear. So maybe someone says something small, almost nothing, and it triggers you. And suddenly you're thinking like your old self again. It happens a lot. And maybe someone doubts you out loud. Maybe they bring up who you used to be, like they're trying to keep you there, right? We all know that. Um, yeah, maybe you're just tired. Maybe you're stressed in a way that has nothing to do with your growth and everything to do with, life being life. You go to work, maybe it's the kids, maybe you didn't sleep, maybe it's the bills piled up, maybe you skip one workout and then one turns into a week. Maybe you eat the thing you promised yourself you wouldn't. Maybe you spend an entire weekend on the couch doing absolutely nothing that moves you forward. Maybe you stop reading, maybe you stop creating, maybe quietly without even meaning to, you stop believing. All these maybes, maybes. Here's the mistake. The mistake has never been these things that happen to us. It's not the things. Life is going to keep happening to all of us, no matter how we reinvent ourselves, no matter who we become. The mistake is believing that these moments define us because they don't. They're moments, not identities. A rough Tuesday is not a life sentence. One bad week, it doesn't undo the version of us that's been quietly building for months, unless we let it, which is what we do, which is what this podcast is about today. I want to tell you something I've learned, and I really want you to let this land because I think it changes everything. Every single time that you notice you've drifted, that is actually progress, not failure. It's progress. Because I promise you, the old version of you, the one before you decided to reinvent yourself, she wouldn't have noticed. She would have stayed there, comfortable, numb to it, not even aware that anything had shifted. So the fact that you're aware that something shifted, that's progress. But the new version, right, you think is supposed to be without a flaw, like perfect. But we're not perfect, we're human. Before you decided to reinvent your life, you wouldn't have noticed. That's the point. You would have just stayed there, comfortable. But the new you noticed it. It catched it. It didn't just let the thoughts go. You said, wait a minute, this isn't who I'm becoming. That's awareness. That's not you slipping. That's you growing. Noticing is a skill, and it's one you didn't have before. So don't skip past that. Give yourself credit for it. And then once you've noticed, you know what you do? You get back on the bike. You fall off the bike, you get back on the bike. I think so many of us are exhausting ourselves trying to become perfect. And I want to say this as clearly as I can. Perfect doesn't exist. It never existed. It's good to strive for it. I'm not saying you shouldn't strive for something better, but you have to give yourself grace. You have to know that you're going to mess up because you're human. Think about it this way. Imagine if every single time you drifted, you just came back. No shame attached to it, no guilt, no spiral. No, well, I ruined it. Might as well start completely over again on Monday. Or just quietly, okay, it's over. No, just say to yourself, okay, I'm back. How much faster do you think you'd become the person you're trying to be? I can tell you the answer isn't complicated. You'd get there so much faster than someone who quits the entire ride every time they scrape a knee. The people who transform their lives are not the people who never fail. They're the people who never stay down. And I want you to consider something else because I think it might shift you to see the whole process. What if failing isn't the opposite of transformation? What if it's actually part of it? Because every time that you climb back on that bike, you're doing something important. You're not just resuming where you left off. You're strengthening the identity you've been building. You're proving something to yourself in a way that words alone could never do. You're telling yourself through action, I don't quit anymore. I come back. I keep going. Not because you never fall. That was never the deal, but because you always return. That return is the whole thing. That's the reinvention. It was never about becoming someone who's immune to bad days. It's about becoming someone who doesn't let a bad day turn into a bad month or a bad month turn into a bad life. So, wherever you are right now, listening to this, I want you to be honest with yourself for 1 second. Maybe you've been off the bike for an hour, maybe a day, maybe it's been a month, maybe, if you were being really honest, it's been a year. Maybe you stopped believing in yourself somewhere along the way. You stopped taking care of yourself. You quietly stopped dreaming because dreaming started to feel like it just led to disappointment. You've convinced yourself that it's too late, that the window closed, that the other people get to reinvent themselves, but you missed your chance. I need you to hear me on this. It isn't too late. Your bike is still exactly where you left it. It hasn't gone anywhere. It doesn't care how long you've been gone. It isn't standing there judging you, keeping score of every day you didn't show up. It's just waiting patiently for you to walk over and climb back on that bike. Get back on your bike. So here's your challenge for today. I want you to actually take this one with you, not just nod along and forget it by the time you get back in traffic. Don't promise yourself you'll never fall again. That's not a promise you can keep. And that's setting you up for an impossible standard. And it's just setting yourself up to feel like a failure by next Tuesday. Promise yourself something better instead. Promise yourself that the next time you notice you've drifted, the next time you catch yourself slipping into the old version of you, you won't waste a week feeling guilty about it. You won't waste a month beating yourself up over one bad decision. You won't decide that one setback means you've ruined your whole life. Instead, you'll simply smile. You'll recognize it for what it is. It's just a moment. not an identity. You'll notice that you noticed, and that's good. And you'll get right back on that bike. Because here's the truth: your future isn't being built by people who never fall, it's being built by people who never stop getting back up. And you and me are one of those people. Thank you for spending time with me today in the reinvention room. If today's episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs the reminder that one bad day doesn't erase all the progress you've made. And until next time, fall in love with your life, and I'll see you in the reinvention room.
0, 1. Let's get started.